According to the report from the Auditor General of the Federation, 178,459, including 88,078 AK-47 rifles, were missing from police inventory. In 2020 alone, 3,907 firearms disappeared from police armories across the country over time. The Inspector General of Police has two main worries, two objectives and two institutions in the report. The two worries are that the report by the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation is factually inaccurate and the police were not given a chance to interrogate the report before it was released. These are the issues the Inspector General has with the Auditor General. He now wants the police to be given time to do its own investigation. He also has a gross with the Senate. The report should not have been made a matter for public debate. In fact, because it borders on national security, it should have been raised and considered behind closed doors.
Like I said earlier, this number actually that God is alleged to have been missing is a serious threat to our security. And I'm sure, like I said earlier, the IG will take appropriate action to ensure that the arms are recovered, and those found liable or responsible for the missing of these arms will face the role of the law in line with police regulations and procedure.
I mean, the most important thing is that it is coming from the Auditor General's office, and that is a government department that has the responsibility to conduct audits and then issue reports. And the process of audit is that it would conduct the processes, submit a report to the parent organization, and then allow the parent organization to respond to the questions or queries. They call them audit queries. Now, in this instance, it appears that the period that the author gave the responsible organization, which is the Nigerian police, was to respond. It didn't respond, which now led the National Assembly, in this instance the Senate, to sit and invite both sides, the Office of the Auditor General and then the Nigerian Police Force. And it was during the sitting on the issue at the Senate that the issue came to limelight. Of course, before then, last year, snippets of the report had been released. So we knew that a number of weapons were missing from police armory from that report.
The Inspector General of Police fears that the approach adopted would damage the reputation of the police and undermine the confidence of the Nigerian population in their police force. The matter is even worse if the reputational loss within the international community is considered.
Yeah, to a large extent, this is security issues. See, there are statements you make that can cause fear in the minds of the citizens. And also the corporate image of the force also should also be considered. And we have to be careful how we manage security information, that information management. So that is right to a large extent. But the point again is that the National Assembly has oversight function to see to this. That's why they call the IG to appear before them. They will have a duty to find out about these arms and ammunition, because this is a purchase with the public funds. There have to be accountability on those firearms. So to a large extent, we need to be careful how we manipulate security information so it doesn't cause panic. So also it does not, because the image of the force and the country is very, very critical to ourselves and to international community.
The police community seems to align with the Inspector General on matters that border national security and should not be for street conversation. And the Senate should know that. That may explain why the Senate President Godswill Akpabio will not brook any discussion of it after receiving a letter from the #1 police officer expressing his concern on making the findings of the Auditor General a matter of open debate.
Convey my warmest regards to the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, while also conveying my profound shock and dismay at the recent events that unfolded during the Senate Committee on Public Accounts, sitting on Tuesday, 11th day of February 2025. The public vilification of the police force during the session was deeply troubling, particularly as the allegations presented were entirely rooted in factual inaccuracies. This unfortunate incident has had far-reaching consequences, perpetuating a very false narrative about our institution and the force's leadership, both domestically and internationally. The reputational damage inflicted upon our country and its public institution is unimaginable. In the light of this, I respectfully implore the Senate leadership to intervene and to grant the police force sufficient time to conduct a thorough investigation into the alleged missing firearms from the armories as of December 2020.
The process of audit is laborious. One time in my life I was an auditor, so I know the process. You would sit with the organization, request for documents, conduct physical visits, and engage in interviews, in some instances even investigations, and then you come with your conclusions, upon which you now write your audit queries, as it were, and which are embedded inside the audit report. So the Nigerian Police Force had an opportunity to respond to those audit queries in the process of the conducting the audit. He didn't do that. When the report was written, I'm sure it was submitted to the Inspector General of Police and possibly to the Minister of Police Affairs, and he didn't do that. Remember, even the Senate claimed that in the instances they invited the Nigerian Police Force, they didn't show up until they threatened to take action against the Inspector General of Police before he showed up. So it appears that there is an element of negligence and lack of responsiveness on the side of the police, which may have led to what we saw in terms of the letter that you said. They probably thought it was going to be like it was in the past, where when issues like this come up and then nobody responds, then they will just sweep it under the carpet. But obviously that didn't happen in this instance.
There are, however, issues about the Nigeria police, its officers, and missing arms which did not emanate from a report from the Auditor General's office. So how does the Inspector General handle such a reputation damage, which is known both locally and internationally? Furthermore, the year after, Amnesty International published its Corruption and Human Rights Abuse report, and year after year, the Nigerian police gets fingered for corruption, including its personal selling of arms to criminals and for human rights abuse.
I did recommend to the IGP to set up a committee to do an in-house investigation and identify all the lapses and start the process of correcting those lapses. Now, beyond him, I believe that the Minister of Police Affairs, who is the responsible ministry for overseeing the Nigerian Police Force, should work together with the Police Trust Fund and to an extent the PSC, Police Service Commission, to look into critical areas, including the behavior and conduct of our police officers. I believe that there is a need to identify bad eggs within the system. The process of identifying those bad eggs should be meticulous. There are red flags that are visible. If the police officer is a drug addict, if he's a drunkard, then he can do anything when he's in need of that. So that process need to be conducted by the supervisory agency. Then the National Assembly too would need to come in. They started the process by inviting the MPF to have a conversation regarding that audit report, but they need to take it a step further by ensuring that they identify every aspect of that audit report. All the audit queries listed must be answered, and I hear there are about 7 or 8 of those audit queries. They must be answered by the Nigerian Police Force. Nothing should be swept under the carpet. The moment they are answered, if the answers are satisfactory, we leave it at that. If they are not satisfactory, by right of its oversight authority as well as its legislative authority, the National Assembly can create the change that we need. At the end of the day, we need an improvement in our policing functions, and this is the beginning. If we are going to get it right, we need to make sure we are forthright in the conclusions. All of these 3 components that I've mentioned, they have a role to play. And of course, I'm very delighted that the fourth estate of the realm is also playing its role. Let's not allow this matter to die. The media should continue to talk about it until we see the right changes that we need. Civil society organizations, our development partners should also come in. We may need their support in certain instances, training on the right way to manage armories. Is one way that our development partners and civil society organizations can come in to support us in that regard.
It may be that the Inspector General is working to reposition the police. It may be that he feels bad that the report and its public debate could overlook his efforts. It is doubtful, though, that what is already known could do more damage because the Auditor General's office provided numbers and the Parliament wants to debate and find a solution to the challenge.
The response of most chief executives in Nigeria, when things like this happen, they are more concerned about the damage it can have on their reputation and not necessarily the impact of what is being discovered. And so, our advice to him is to be the man in the mirror and tell himself the truth. All of these issues are well documented. We're not saying he's responsible for it. He inherited most of them, but he now has an opportunity more than anyone to correct what is wrong. And so, be the man in the mirror. Set up an investigative committee and identify the gaps, the lapses within the system, and try to correct them. We've mentioned some of them: the armories, the process of running the armories themselves. I mean, think about it. The moment you leave perhaps the city centers and you start going into the hinterlands, most of the police facilities don't have armories that have integrity. All it takes for a criminal to do is to break a wall in any of the police division, and he's right inside the armory, and they now steal the weapons from them. That's just one part, but there are several other components. So he needs to set up that committee that would look into all of the processes and then start correcting them. The ones that are low-hanging fruits that he can correct immediately, let him do so. The ones that need a more strategic revision of the police processes, then he may need to engage with the Minister of Police Affairs and the National Assembly to see how these changes can be done. But it's not about denial, and it's not about indicating reputational damage. It's bigger than that. It's the future of Nigeria, it's public security, and it's an improvement in national security.
For many years, the Nigerian public has been one in campaigning for better equipment, training and remuneration for personnel of the police force. This has been an open and concerted campaign.
Because this army must have gone to hands of unauthorized persons, might be criminals, and they will use them for criminal activity, which is going to be a threat to the society, threat to life and property, and also, so it's not very palatable news that we should be happy about. And I think also go to underscore the point that maybe there's laxity in the supervision and control of arms in the police, because police have a procedure, standard procedure of controlling arms and ammunition in their custody. They have a very well equipped armory. At the station, they have what they call a rack where the arms are stocked, and nobody can remove it. They say because they might have a key to lock it. And when the police officers sign for men, go for it, they sign for them. Arms and ammunition, they sign when they come ready. They sign out and sign in. So in that case, maybe they are lapsed in terms of supervision, because the armorer is supposed to be supervised. There ought to be regular check of the armory, the arm register, and check the armory and so forth. So I think, but now the IG has promised to do something.
I think we need to be a bit broad-minded in the conclusions. So among those weapons, it's possible that some of them their shelf lives have expired, and so they are meant to be discarded, as it were. But there is a process for doing that, and that's one category. The other category are categories that criminals, especially violent criminals, attack police officers and steal weapons from them. This is well documented. The third category, which is the one that I know has received a lot of public attention, is the possibility that some of the security police personnel are either hiring or selling their weapons to criminals to use them to engage in criminal activities. And so all of these 4 or 5 categories that I've mentioned would have led to this number that we see.
Should the institution for which the public is investing its support not also be held to account? Can it be rationalized that getting the Nigerian public to know how the arms purchased for the police are used or misused undermines national security? Nigerians can begin to trust a clean, accountable police force, knowing that the arms and ammunition bought for the public safety and security do not end up in the hands of those who kill and make life unbearable for the citizens.
360 Nigeria, tracking issues in the polity.